Okay, everyone, welcome to the speaker series for the Black Doctoral Network. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing the expertise of Dr. Kim Grant Horsey. You already read her bio, you know what she's capable of, so we're going to let her take over and do what she does best, and that's educate us about understanding the dissertation process. Please turn your attention to Dr. Kim Grant Horsey.
Good afternoon, good evening, welcome. I'm glad you're all here. I was captivated when I saw that the Black Doctoral Network was asking for presenters, and I said, oh, let me try this. And to be honest, full transparency, when they said they're looking for 8 sessions, 1-hour sessions, I said, oh, I can create a course like that. So that was my first plan of attack, was to create a course, but then they said, no, you only get an hour. So I pared it down as much as I could basically pare it down to give you the process. It's not moving. Okay. My agenda for today is the introduction. It's me. We're going to have the discussion of the process, and then we're going to go through questions and answers. My name is Dr. Kim Grant Horsey. I have a doctorate in management and organizational leadership with an emphasis in information systems technology. I am the founder and CEO of Dissertation Accountability Partners, LLC, and I also am a dissertation advisor or chair. You were going to hear those names, those terms, so get used to them. And I work for Gwinnett Mercy University. So right now, I want to ask you to pull out your phones or use your laptops, and you want to go to poll. I apologize. You want to go to pollev.kimgranthorsey689 so we can answer the question. And the question is, when does the dissertation process begin? Do you believe it's A, before you start school, B, when you register for school, C, when your advisor chair accepts your proposal, or D, none of the above? I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to get that, a couple of seconds to get that done. If you cannot, use the poll E. Just put it in the chat. Just throw it in the chat. When do you think when do you think it starts? And if you want to answer out loud, go right ahead. When do you believe it starts?
And for those of you all who weren't able to copy and paste, I have typed the website in the chat. So feel free to copy and paste that into your browser and move forward with the voting process.
All right, thank you so much. And make sure you just leave the browser that open, because there's another interactive video question for you. All right, so far I have A, before you start school, then I have none of the above. Yes. All right, so actually it is before you start school, A.
I got it right.
Awesome. I mean, a lot of times you come in and you're going to say, oh, I'm going to go for my doctorate. I'm going to go for my PhD. I'm going to do this. But there are things you need to know before you start, because once you start, it's a little bit too late, because now you're going to be upset. Well, no one told me ahead of time. No one told me this. But the things you want to consider is the difference between a thesis and a dissertation. What do you know what the difference is between a thesis and a dissertation? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, a thesis is usually associated with a master's degree, and it is not an original work. A dissertation is a PhD or a doctorate. However, it is original research and it's original work. That is the difference. A thesis can be thick or long, but a dissertation, mine was 150 pages. So it all depends on the school you're going to, the topic that you're researching, and what you are required to do. So that is the difference. Then you want to understand and consider why you're pursuing a degree. So anybody want to share why they're pursuing or want to pursue a terminal degree? Come on, you guys can just come on off mute and just talk.
It's really competitive out here. So I want to make sure that for me, that I have that respect and notoriety, especially as a Black woman. So those 3 letters behind my name can really set me apart from other people. So for me, that's my why.
All right, I'll take one more person. If anyone else would like to share, I would greatly appreciate it.
More career opportunities.
All right, those are great reasons to pursue a doctorate or a PhD. It is a lot of work, and unfortunately, Dr. Tolson and I were just talking about that. They will try you, even though you do have your DR in front of your name. They will call you by your name and within a group. So the level of respect may not always be there, especially when you first graduate or if you first are conferred. So don't get upset when that doesn't happen right away. So because now you know. You want to consider your work environment. What are you going to be working? How are you going to be working? Are you going to be in a private office? Because the amount of paper that you're going to accumulate is phenomenal. And if you're in a shared workspace, you're going to have to clean it up every day. That means you have your pile that you need for this part. You have a pile you need for that part, but now someone else comes in, needs it. You got to put all your piles together. So therefore you have to consider where you're working. Are you working at home? Are you working at an office at school or at your job? You know, if you're doing it at your job, you really need to be careful, because they can say, hey, listen, even though this is, excuse me, original work, you're doing it on work time. So therefore it's our work product. So you have to be very careful where you choose to do your dissertation in your schoolwork. You want to also consider your time. How much time are you going to invest? How much time are you willing to miss? Your family time, your sleep time, your me time, your any time that you have. I rode around a lot taking my children to theater, and I sat in the van and did schoolwork. I even did a couple of live shows with them, and I drug my computer on the stage during rehearsal so I could continue to do stuff. So it all depends on what you want to carve out for yourself as time. And then also you want to talk about, think about your cost. Everybody knows that there's going to be costs associated with tuition and books. But let's consider the other costs. You need an editor, a coach, the APA manual, any type of software that you may need to help you. Any type of data management systems that may cost. You have to make sure you factor that in. You may not need an editor until toward the end of your program. Factor that in. An editor goes, to be honest, I paid $1,200 for an editor. I didn't care. I was done. I scrounged out the money because I didn't know ahead of time that that's how much the editor was going to cost. So those are some of the things that you're going to have to do. And also the cost of time that you are away from your family affairs, the picnic. My nephew plays baseball, professional baseball. So I was always at the baseball game. You know, was I supposed to be doing that? No, but I did that, but I made it up. Well, I thought I made it up, but it pushed me back a little further than what I needed to be. So those are the things that you want to consider prior to getting you starting what you want to do. All right. The second phase is with the premise or the prospectus. You're going to hear these terms. They may not be the exact terms, but you're going to hear these terms along the way. A premise or the prospectus is a short document, 3 to 5 pages, and it's where you discuss your preliminary dissertation topic. What are you interested in researching? What do you want to do? Some people come in and say, oh, I'm going to solve for world peace, and this is what I'm going to do. And you start off with it, and they're going to say, well, what do you really want to know? So you want to also talk about the research design, the rationale, and why there is a problem. And when you're doing that, you want to do what's called a scoping literature review. That means you want to find journals a topic that you are interested in. A lot of people will say, oh, do something that you have a passion because you're going to be writing about it. Be careful about doing something that you're passionate about. Because when you're doing something that you're passionate about and you have a lot of knowledge on, you are going to have the possibility of researcher bias entering, and that's a whole different topic. And it's a whole different animal that you don't want to open that door. You can identify it and you can make note of it, but when it comes to, because you're going to say, well, I know it's supposed to be this, and what this person is saying or the information that I'm finding is it's not true. So you have to be able, really careful on the topic that you pick. During the scoping literature review, you're going to identify if there is a viable problem. World peace is a problem, but trying to solve it, is it a viable way to do it through research? So those are things that you want to be cognizant of. The research design, the design is either qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method, which is both of them, using both of them at once. And that's all you want to do. You want to work with numbers, or you're going to work with words. Which one do you want? Which one are you going to feel most comfortable with? Be cognizant that you may say, I'm going to work well with numbers. And then you pick a topic and you say, you know what? The numbers don't work. I'm going to change it and work with the words. So those are things that you have to be able. You always have to have an open mind. You always have to be flexible. The rationale, why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? According to research, less than 5% of people hold a doctorate degree. And that has been since I don't know how long. That number is not changing, even though more and more people are getting the degrees. Why is that number not changing? So therefore, that may be a study, and that may be something that someone might want to say, well, we're going to find out. But, we have to say, well, that's the rationale, because for the last 30 years, I'm just throwing out numbers, 35,000 people received a doctorate or PhD, but yet the average of the 5% is not changing. So you have to find out. So there's a rationale. Why isn't that number changing? And then the problem would be the number not changing. Someone's not doing their job, or some people are not counting if certain degrees are counted towards a PhD or a doctorate. A lot of them that people don't consider would be the medical profession, an MD, a lawyer, they have a JD. Those are all terminal degrees, or what's the highest level degree that you can get in that particular field. So I have not found out. That's something that I did not want to research, but that's one thing that we want to understand. And that documents basically is usually 3 to 5 pages, no more. And phase 3 is going to be your thesis, your concept paper, or your proposal. So you hand your first paper to your chair or your advisor, and they said, okay, this is a good topic, we're going to go with it. So now I need you to do a proposal or a concept paper, and that is chapters 1, 2, and 3. And in all those chapters, you're going to present what you are going to be doing in your for your research. You're going to really narrow down your topic. Your topic is where you start, is a funnel. It starts really high, and as you go further down into it, it becomes very, very narrow until you get the exact topic that you want to research. The significance of the study. Why is this study important? You want to know, you have to understand why your study is important. It may be important to you. World peace may be important to me, but world peace may not be important to everyone else. So therefore, it may not be a significant study, and it may not help add to the body of knowledge. And you also want to, you already said you're going to do either qualitative or quantitative or a mixed case design. But now there's so many methods. You have phenomenological, which is qualitative, ethnography, which is qualitative, case study, which is qualitative. Then you have a quasi experiment, which is quantitative. And then you have descriptive, and there's so many other elements. So you have to understand. And this all comes with you doing your research with your literature reviews. You also have to have your research question, which is a qualitative, and you're going to have a hypothesis for quantitative. And you use both of them when you're doing a mixed method. You want to identify your population. Who is this? Who are you targeting? What's your target audience? And why is this important? My dissertation was Black American women in STEM finding their voice. And I did an ethnography, which meant I wanted to understand the culture of African American women who were successful in STEM. My criteria was they had to graduate from an HBCU, they had to be currently working in a STEM field, and they had to be over 18. So those are the things that I put into my proposal, my concept paper, and I was able to move on to my next step. And once you get everybody's, your chair, your committee members and everything all on board with that, then you're going to go and defend your proposal. Your proposal, what the defense of your proposal is letting your people know that you know what you're talking about. You did all the necessary research. You understand what you're doing, and you can explain it to them in layman's terms. So, any questions so far? Okay. The next one is what criteria is used to select committee members? What criteria do you think is used to select committee members? You can just type in your responses, and it should come up with one of the word webs, one of those word polls. And your committee member, while you're doing that, a committee member is a person that helps you along the way. They read your document, they give you feedback, whether negative or positive. They are there to help you move forward. So when you're doing that, when you're selecting a committee member, you want to make sure that you are able to, that person is versed in the design and method that you want to use. They have knowledge, relationships, awesome. They study, they have the same interests as you, awesome. They also want to make sure that you are the methods, a great writer, subject matter, solid. I'm loving your terms. I'm loving the terms. That way, when you're looking for your committee members, some schools give you a committee member, and some schools have you choose your own committee member. The school that I'm in right now, working at right now, Gwinnett Mercy, the students have to find their own committee members, and they can be from anywhere. Some schools say that you can only use committee members, find people for your committee that teach at that particular school. And then you have the powers to be to say, well, we're going to assign you Dr. Tolson, and you're going to just be glad that she's on your committee, and you have no say on that. That happens. People will tell you, you're going to get this person, you have to make it work. And you have to show good reason why it is not working before they say, okay, we're going to change it. It's not simple. So you always want to do a short interview with them. You can send them your proposal while you're asking. If you have chapter 1 done, you can say, hey, I have chapter 1. I would like for you to be on my committee. Can you read it? Does it interest you? Would you agree? And then you pray for the best. And if they say no, you go back to the next person. You keep going until you find somebody. When I was selecting my committee people, I lived in Florida at the time. So I wanted somebody in the state of Florida. And so in case I needed to reach out to them and wanted to touch them, I was willing to drive the 2 or 3 hours needed to get to that person to touch and see them in person. It didn't work out that way, but that was my rationale. It had nothing to do with any of what you're saying on any of the terminology that you have given me. So make sure you understand, your committee member is a major force in what you do. All right, so I have a slide out of order and I apologize. So you have phase 4, which is on your data collection. But prior to getting to your data collection, you want to do, you go through what's called the IRB, the Institutional Review Board. And that is where you submit your proposal that has been approved by your committee. And they go through and, excuse me, because I apologize. There is a slide for that. And I want you guys to know, I went through this presentation several times. I do apologize for what happened. So the IRB, the International Review, the Institutional Review Board, they look at it, they make sure it's ethical. Make sure that you're doing what you're going to say that you're going to do. You're not targeting what they classify as protected populations, pregnant women, children, prisoners. Those are all protected classes. So if you're going to do anything with a protected class, you have to get special permission. And getting special permission requires you to say, you're talking about pregnant women, a person happens to be going through pregnancy and they go through labor. What do you have in place for that particular person who happens to be going through in labor? Or if you're talking to people that are in prison and you talking about something that caused them any type of trauma, what do you have in place to help them through that trauma? You're not able to say, well, I can refer them to a specialist. You have to have the specialist's name, what the person does, phone number, address. Are they virtual? Are they going to be in person? So you have to have everything in place. When you do IRB, it's expedited, which is you don't have very much review because you're just using archival data, which is old stuff. You're just going through records and you're using numbers. You have a full one. That is for when you're using protected classes. Oh, another protected class is children. If you can avoid anything working with children 18 and under, please do so. It's going to save you a lot of extra work and you'll get through your program a little quicker. And then you have what's called CITI, C-I-T-I, the CITI program, and they give you a number and you have to take it every 2 to 3 years, and it's for HIPAA and helping you to make sure that you're staying compliant with HIPAA. No information is being transmitted that someone else doesn't need to know. So if I'm doing collection on the African-American women in STEM, I had to make sure that they had a pseudonym. I had to make sure all their data was scrubbed in case someone picked up everything. Everything had to be locked up. How am I locking it up? Where am I locking it up? Why are you locking it up? All those things that we have to do. So those are the things that you want to be consistent of and cognizant of. And once you get to phase, after you get the IRB approval, you go to the data collection. And your data collection is where you do your recruitment. If you're doing qualitative, you recruit people. You ask people, can you help me? Are you interested in doing a survey? Are you interested in answering questions for me? Are you interested in talking to me? You're going to get a lot of no's. And my journey, and in what I'm seeing now with some of my clients, recruitment is the hardest thing to do. They're having a hard time finding people, even though they said, hey, we were going to help you. Okay, now it's time to help. Oh, no, sorry, I don't feel like doing it. And then you want to just, when you're collecting your data, you're just collecting your data. You're not doing anything else but collecting your data. You're going to be observing people. You can do experiments. You're doing simulations. You're derived. There's all different types of methods to collect data. So you have to figure out what is going to work for you. You can use more than one method to collect your data, but all that's already outlined in your first 3 chapters. And after you collect your data, you're all excited because you're moving along. You're going to analyze it. And analyzing is not trying to understand it. Analyze at this particular in phase 5 means you're going to score or code. You're going to check your facts. You're going to analyze to say, did I do the right thing? Is this the right test that I'm supposed to be using if I'm doing statistics? What management tools are you going to be using? You have In Vivo, you have Atlas TI, you have DeBose, you have SPSS, you have all different types of software that you can use to help you. So if you're going to use any particular software, and if your students class, if you're taking classes, they may let you have a student version for that particular class. And you say, oh, I like this software, I want to use it. If your school does not offer it for you, it is pricey. So you want to make sure that you find software that you're able to use and you're able to afford, because they are pricey. SPSS was free for me for about seven years, but then it became not free. I'm like, okay, I'm not using that. In Vivo was free to me, then it was not free. And understand you have learning curves when you are learning these particular software. You say, oh, well, I'm going to use that and I'm going to use it the first time when I start coding. And I've noticed it shows frustrations on the person doing it because they're trying to figure out how to do it. One of my clients, she transcribed all her information after she did all her interviews. I said, just do it by hand. Just do your coding by hand because you are so familiar with it. You know it inside out. You can just code it by hand. You have to explain why you didn't use the software, but code it by hand. So there's different ways that you can do it. And also when you're analyzing it, you come up with more questions. Well, why did that happen? Do I need to run another test? Especially if you're doing statistical information. Am I using another test? Well, do I need to verify? Let me go back and check to make sure I got everything right. And when you go back and check and you have something wrong, don't panic. Just figure out what you're trying to do and go back and do it again. So those are some of the things that you want to be cognizant of. I'm going to stop right now and I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions on what we've talked about so far.
Yes, Dr. Horsey, we actually have 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
They're very good questions. The first one comes from Melinda, and Melinda is asking, in each part of the dissertation phase, is it the same for everybody or does it vary?
That's an excellent question, Melinda. It depends on your school. Some schools, you are going through class as well as doing the dissertation process at the same time. Some schools you go through class first, then you do your dissertation. And then some of them you just, come in, the term ABD, Albright dissertation. Some people just jump back in and say, I want to finish. So they're moving in, they take 1 or 2 classes. So it all depends on what school that you're going to and what they are requiring you to do. That's an excellent question. So when you get to that particular school, ask them, when will I be working on my dissertation? Next question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Horsey. The next question comes from Danisha. And Danisha is asking about scoping documents and then moving forward with literature review. And so her question is, can you explain that in a little bit further detail? So in what order did you write chapters 1, 2, and 3? Are there any additional resources that you can, or advice you can give to somebody who is in the initial stages of that process? And how did they prepare for the proposal? Great question.
Great question. Again, it depends on your school. I've heard people say they had to write their literature review first, and that helps them identify the problem and the significance of their study and the purpose, and helps them define what they really want to do. Some people jump right in and say, I'm going to do chapter 1. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing chapter 1. Yeah, I got this. I got this. That was me. I didn't got this. I'm like, what? Whoa. Some people, you have to decide the scoping literature. The literature review is a totally different workshop because there's different types of literature reviews. So, but a scoping one is for the beginning stages when you really start and you're trying to identify the topic that you want to do. If it's, like I said, if I did STEM, and I wanted to understand why there were so many females that were not represented in STEM. So,
Dr. Horsey, can you go into a little bit more detail? I think the gist of the question may have been, why exactly are you doing a literature review? What is the purpose behind that? And how does that lead into chapters 1, 2, and 3? If you can.
Right. Okay. So I can only go off from my experience. So I was doing STEM, and all the literature that I was finding from all the different journals that I was reading said African-American women are underrepresented. They don't do well in math in high school. They don't take science in high school. They don't do this. They fail at that. They're not smart. That's what it was. It was all negative. So as I was reading, I was making an annotated bibliography. I was making notes on my documents. This says this is doing this, and this is what I found out. And I was like, I'm tired. Personally, I said, I'm tired of reading about the negativity of African Americans. So then I started saying, I'm going to switch my title and I'm going to switch my focus. I'm going to work on, find out what's positive. So then I started saying, why are African Americans successful in STEM? And who are the African Americans successful in STEM? So again, that turns out to be reading journals, books, talking to people, picking their brain. And that's what a literature review is. Mainly they tell you to use journals, but you can use books, multiple trips to, I live in Philadelphia, so I have several colleges that I can use their libraries. So I was able to, to find information that says we are influential in the STEM field. So that's what you do. You just have to keep reading to find. That's what the literature review is. It doesn't come out and say, this is what you're going to do, and this is the answer that you're looking for in the first 2 journals that you're looking at. I think my dissertation had about 20 references, 20 pages of references. So this, that's what the literature review does. It helps you understand what your problem is, and it helps you understand if that is a problem. You hear the word gap in the literature. Does that answer your question, Denisha?
It's Dionysia, and yes, thank you.
All right, fine, thank you. And again, there's different types of literature reviews. There's a systematic literature review. There's a scoping literature review. There's another one, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it all depends on what you're doing, because you make a record of every piece of literature that you use and that you analyzed. So there's a whole different thing on with the literature review.
Dr. Horsey, we have one more question at the moment, but would it be okay if I added something to what she just said? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. So Danisha, great question, and Melinda, great question as well. Something that Dr. Horsey mentioned earlier was software packages. So depending on whether or not you're doing a qualitative study or a quantitative study, it's going to determine what kind of software package you're going to use. If you're going to be a quantitative researcher, then things like SPSS and Stata and things of that sort are going to be your best friend. That's for your quantitative data analysis. If you are going to be doing qualitative, she mentioned things like Atlas TI and whatnot. I used WordStat and some of the other Probalis software packages. One thing she said was it can get very pricey. So I would suggest, from my own experience, to start putting a little bit away as soon as you get to the midpoint in your classes when you're almost done. Start putting away a few dollars every month, because you're going to spend between $200 and $400 for a software package if your school doesn't already have it. So add that to your expenses. If you have a laptop expense, book expenses, add that to your expenses, because you will need to do it. There's no getting around that. And when I say no getting around that, I don't mean, oh, if you don't do it, you're going to fail. I'm just saying, if you don't have those packages, it's going to make your life miserable. You need to have those packages to do your analysis. The other thing I want to say was Dr. Horsey also mentioned that she had about 18 pages of references. So when you think about that, that's a lot of references, right? Think about 12.5 times New Roman, right? That's a lot of references. So typically how that works, and what I would suggest to students that are in this practice now, is that when you're doing your classwork and you have an opportunity to do research or submit a project or whatever it is you're working on, try to make sure you're using the same topics that you have proposed in your mind to present for your dissertation. Yeah. And then when you do that, as you're moving through your coursework, you're also collecting those resources. So all of those journal articles you're looking at, those book references, you now have them at your disposal. There are two noteworthy options that you can use to house that data. So you can collect all your journal articles and your reference articles, and you can put them either in OneNote, that's a free software package. The one that I use is Zotero, Zotero. I'll drop that in the chat for you guys. When you have those things at your disposal, it is so much easier, because when you find them, you can categorize them. So when you get to the process that Dr. Horsey is talking about writing your literature review, you have to go back and fumble like, oh no, what class is that for? Oh no, what journal was that? Oh no, what was it talking about? She said she made an annotated bibliography. You can annotate all of your references and using those two separate packages. So I just want to put that out there, that what she's saying is not only valid, it's vital. It's vital.
And to piggyback on Dr. Tolson, awesome. Mendeley, Medley, Mendeley, that's also free. But even if you're using anything that is electronic, back it up.
Back it up.
Back it up. If you put it into one of your data resource management softwares, put it in a Word document. All you have to do is put your, just copy paste the reference. You don't have to put everything else in there, because if Mendeley fails or anything else fails and you don't have your references, there's an issue. So I did it. Some of the things that we wanted, because I already knew I only had an hour, so I wanted to make sure I got everything in. So,
okay. So we're going to wrap up in a little teeny bit. The last question is, someone has a question about how to recruit participants. Do you recommend software packages for that also, like Qualtrics as a recruiting method?
It all depends on what you and your chair and committee agree on, and what IRB says, yes, it's legal. Some people are doing it by word of mouth, which is called snowballing. Some people are using social media. There's other different ways. This right now, I just wanted to give you guys a high level overview so that you know what you're getting into. So you're kind of prepared. You're not going to be prepared no matter what you do. You're not prepared. The biggest thing that you want to make sure that you know how to do is write. Don't think, oh, I know how to write. I'm a great writer. Dissertation writing is academic writing, is very different than any other type of writing that you ever had in your life. So don't get upset or anything like that when you get your papers back and everyone's like, well, your writing's not great. You're like, what? You know what? You're absolutely right. I did not use the academic writing. Go to your school's library and use their writing center. Their writing center is going to be your friend until you get a hang on what they're looking for in their writing. So I think I have a couple more slides. Let me get through those. All right, I'm going to skip this since it's a little short video on statistics. It was cute though. You have your analysis, and this is when it's different than when you analyze or code your data. This is when you take all the information that you have coded and you answer whatever your research question is, or you discuss your hypothesis. And that's where you present your results. This is what I did. I asked if this, and I got this answer. I did not answer the hypothesis, the reason why. And then you do a discussion about it, and you discuss what happened, and you continue on with making sure that you answer all your research questions. And then what can you use your study for? What does your research open the doors for future research? I did mine on African-American women in STEM that had graduated from an HBCU. So for future research, I can do African-American women in STEM who graduated from a PWI, and I can get that information. Then I can compare and contrast with the students that have graduated from a HBCU. Do they have the same experiences, or are they treated the same? Do they have the same culture? So those are the things you want to do. So those are what you're going to do, and that's chapter 4. And chapter 5 that's chapter 4 and 5. And then phase 7 is your next steps, your oral defense. That's when you're defending chapters 4 and 5. This is the information I found from the data that I collected. And this is why my research did or did not make sense. And then some schools are asking students to now publish their findings. So that's, again, something totally different. The school that I do now, they're asking the students to oral defend and publish their findings in the journal. So any additional questions? Any comments?
I have a question. I recently submitted something for publication, and this was my very first time with the name organization. And it seems to me, I submitted in July of last year, and it seems to me, and I'm just assuming that you've published something beyond the dissertation, and correct me if I'm wrong, but how long does it typically take to have things or the publication actually published somewhere?
It all depends on the journal that you submitted to. I will go back to, my suggestion would be to go back to the editors of the journal or whoever you asked to review it and say, I'm just following up. And then that way they can say, yes, we have it. No, we decided not to. We sent you an email. Then did you not get it? So those what you can do with the just follow up with them. And I have something that's being considered for publication right now. I have 2 items being considered for publication. One of them we submitted about 2 months ago. And the other one is the people are still working on their book. So it may take a while.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, these are a couple of books that
Shamika had a question, Dr. Horsey.
Okay, before you ask, these are a couple of books that I used to get from some of the information for. Go ahead, Shamika.
No, I just wanted to say that the feedback was very good. I just finished my first year in my doctoral program. So this is some really great things to think about. And now I'm moving in closer to the different steps that you've mentioned here today. So this was helpful. And I have to, of course, look at the recording again, just so I could absorb everything. But this was great. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Congratulations. I know you're like, oh, I'm getting there. You know, we all know we all have the same end goal. You're going to have some setbacks. You're going to have people are not going to respond or whatever. You just take it in stride. Say, okay, stop, breathe, and then pick up and continue. Don't get flustered. Don't give up. It's a long journey. It's your journey. It's not my journey. My journey took me 11 years because I had to stop to take care of my mother. So your journey is different from my journey. And if someone else's journey is different, if it's taking them 3 years, good for you. I'm glad you went, but I'm still on my journey. So
Everyone, thank you so much. We're still taking questions, but I wanted to let you know that if you missed a couple of things, I did drop some of the gems that Dr. Horsey gave to us today. I dropped them in the chat. And so please take a look at that. And also help us get better. We're bringing you some quality content. We think it's quality content, but help us out with that. If you want to see other things or other topics, let us know. I've also dropped that link in the chat as well. And we have another question for you, Dr. Horsey. It's from Melinda.
Yes, thank you. So as I said earlier, I'm an incoming doctoral student. I just wanted to know, what is it that I should be working on now? I really can't wait to start school. I start school in August and I'm just like, I'm so excited. Everyone keeps saying, take a vacation, take a break, do nothing. And I'm just like, I can't, I want to get started. So what should I be doing? I saw Shamika shaking her head like, yes, take a break, do nothing.
I agree, take a break, do nothing. But if you have to do something, start thinking of a topic that a very broad topic that you may want to research and find out if there's a problem in. And then start reading journals. You'll get to realize these journals are very, very boring. And then you're going to be saying, yeah, no, I should have taken that vacation when they told me to take that vacation because this is boring. This writing, look at different dissertations from ProQuest. And they will give you the terminology that you may want to start getting more familiar with. But personally, I take a vacation and call it a day. Because you're going to be in school for at least a minimum of 3 to 4 years, and it's going to be constant writing. I don't know about any other schools. I had a paper a week. 750 words was the minimum. 2,500 was the max, and you can only say so much in 2,500 words. You can only repeat so much in 2,500 words. So, if anybody else wants to share what Miss Melinda should be doing.
Shamika here. I think I met Melinda before at another event because you look so familiar. You're from New York City, right, Melinda?
Yes.
I think yes. Okay, that makes sense. I would say for me now, finishing my first year, I mean, literally take that break because there is no break in between. Like I literally submitted my last paper to finish my first year, and I start my second year like next week Saturday. So you want to take as much time as you can, get your support networks in there. If you have financial funding, this will be time to just get those, scholarship applications out of the way to cover some funding if you need that. But and as our presenter recommended, certainly, because that's exactly what I did. As soon as I got the notice on May 1st that I got accepted into my program, literally like the next day I started applying and, receive funding for my programs. So if that's something you want to do, that's there's a lot of money right now out there that's available. So take advantage of that and continue networking with other people. I'm in New York City, continue networking with other people, other colleagues and academics in your area. That you need that tribe and that community.
Right. And on to top it, what Shamika is saying, go on Facebook, look up dissertation groups. There's a slew of them out there. And that way you can become part of the group. You can ask questions, get suggestions. Some of them have literature and files that you can use, or where you can find a lot of, sometimes it's called pdfdrive.com. And that is where you can find a lot of books for free. And so if you have to pay for a school book and it's $100 and you say, well, I can get it for free because I'm only going to need it for this one class, do it that, you might want to do it that way. So there's a lot of resources out there, especially on Facebook. So.
Ashley is in a comment agreeing as well. Ashley is agreeing with everything that's being said with Shamika and Dr. Horsey.
Yeah. So, and then this is my contact information in case you want to contact me.
I'm going to type that in the chat for everyone to copy and paste.
So.
That's dissertationparts@gmail.com.
Yes, it's actually changing, but we haven't changed it over yet.
Okay.
But it is changing.
All right. So to reach Dr. Horsey, dissertationparts@gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat. You can copy and paste and reach her there. Something else I would say to you also, Melinda, but the great advice that the other ladies have given you is start now when it comes to finding your tribe. And when I say tribe, I'm speaking of not just meeting people who are also in your area and doing those things. Dr. Horsey mentioned going on Facebook, just finding other people in your same major or interest section, right? So even now, I've graduated and whatnot, but I belong to a group of women. We're a group of Black women doing either getting our doctorate degrees, or we've already done, we're publishing. And so we actually have a group in WhatsApp. And so what we do is we'll say, hey, we set up a room on like a Zoom room. And so we say, hey, and it's members only, obviously. I'm going to be in there at 3 a.m. Who's coming? And so if you're up, we hopping in there and there's no chitter chatter. We're just hopping in. It's just all of us sitting on our computers for accountability, doing the work, getting the work done, getting our papers done, getting our submissions done, getting our abstracts done, if you're presenting at a conference or whatnot. So things like that are really, really important when we say tribe. It's not just about people in your area, it's people in your area of study too. We're all over the country, but we're coming together for that one thing. Excellent idea. Dr.
Right,
Wilson.
right. And I actually run the Zoom rooms for dissertation account. I run them usually on the weekend. But the one thing I want people to understand, do not rely on your family. Do not rely on your family. Oh, she thinks she better than I am. He think he too good. Look at him trying to be all smart. Do not let that deter you, because they're not going to come with you. They may find everything they can to derail you, but they will celebrate you at the end. So make sure, because my mother, she didn't understand online learning. But when I told her I was finished at 9 o'clock at night, she wanted me to call everybody and their mother. I'm like, Mom, I'm not calling anybody at this hour of the night. I'm hungry. I want to eat. But she was, so don't rely on your family. You can tell them that you're going to be doing. Don't expect them to be happy for you. Some will, some won't, but keep moving.
Keep moving is the operative term. And this is not an easy process. Dr. Horsey mentioned earlier, only about 5% of the US population actually has a terminal degree. For us in the diaspora, it's even less, it's about 2%. So about 2% of Black people are doctorate degree holders or terminal degree holders. This is not an easy process. And if you have a master's already, it's not like your master's process. This is a different process. If it were that easy, everyone could do it. So don't beat yourself up for not being or reaching certain milestones, or not being where everyone else is, or your cohort splits up because someone fell behind or you got ahead. Those are things to keep in mind, but you can't focus on that. You got that tunnel vision, and you have to be very focused. Right. Very, very focused. If you have anything that you use for self-care, if you like to have wine, stock up. If you like special soap, stock up. You will need a lot of self-care through this process, okay? Whatever your thing is that you need for your self-care, if it's basketball, make sure your ESPN plus subscription is make sure you have that thing and have it already ahead and ready for you and waiting for you, so that when it's time to just decompress, you can just like, you know what? I don't want to hear nothing. And just do it. Take time for yourself.
Right. Self-care is the best. Self-care. I advise a lot of my clients work 15 minutes a day. Sometimes you work your 15 minutes and you're 2 hours. Oh, that's the longest 15 minutes I ever had. And sometimes you can barely drag yourself to sit down to do 15 minutes. It could be reading, it can be researching, it can be making an outline. We didn't even talk about outlines, but that's the, pinnacle of what you really need to do. It could be anything that's going to move you forward. Creating goals, SMART goals, something that's attainable, measurable, relative and timely. So you want to make sure that you do that. So you have 3 papers that are due for a certain class. Don't wait to the end to say, I'm going to do them all at the end. No, start planning on how you're going to do it. I'm going to do this on this day. I'm going to do this on this day. And if you cannot plan your goal for the day and hit it, if you can't plan your goal for the month and hit it, plan your goal for the day and start hitting your goals for the day. Small success. Take the wins when you can, because if you keep planning for the month and you don't hit them, that's frustration, that's anxiety, that's I'm going to quit. But I did 15 minutes today and I was able to get this much done. That's a win for me.
And small wins count.
Always.
Okay, everybody, that's what we have for tonight. I want to bring to your attention a couple of things. One, if you are not a member of the Black Doctoral Network, think about joining. Come and join us. We have all kinds of information to share, networking, other workshops to bring to you. Be a part of that process. Okay, so visit the blackdoctoralnetwork.com and see what you can be a part of. Our annual conference is coming up this year. It's October the 27th to the 29th, and it's going to be held in Atlanta, Georgia this year. So there's a call for papers that are coming out. Go ahead and hit us up and submit all of your abstracts. We want to see what you got going on and present. And our next 2 workshops in the series this month are going to be happening next week on Tuesday. The first is going to be happening at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is going to be held by Karis Wilson. The title of that workshop is called Using Your Advanced Degree for Economic Development. Again, that's going to be next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time by Karis Wilson. At 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, our second workshop that same day on the 10th, next Tuesday, is going to be given by Dr. Nicole Rankine. And the title of that workshop series is The 10 Interpersonal Skills Everyone Needs. Again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Dr. Horace. It has been a pleasure to have her come and talk about the process of dissertating. And we hope to see you again for our next workshop series. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.